Herod, unfazed, asked if Sagan planned to teach in his place. With a sip of his drink, he made it clear he didn't care. Sagan grimaced at Herod's indifference. Carl recognized Class 1, the elite. He explained to the protagonist that it was led by two of Lumine Academy's pillars, Ian Yura and Len, who were longtime apprentices of Herod and Sagan. Nella, impressed, asked Carl how he knew so much. Carl, flattered, said he had a talent for gathering information. Chelsea, watching this exchange, pretended to gag. Sagan moved closer to Herod and accused him of plotting something by taking charge of the Academy's rejects. Holding a blue ball, Sagan proposed a challenge, an official Basura match between Class 1 and Class 5. Herod was taken aback but praised the idea. He stood up and said that hands-on experience was the best teacher. Sagan, startled by Herod's enthusiasm, quickly declared that Class 1 would win without question. Returning to his seat, Herod dismissed the idea with a sigh, telling Sagan to go ahead and teach them if he cared so much. Sagan seethed, wondering how he kept losing the graduation vote to such a man. From behind him, the students overheard something chilling. If they lost, they'd be expelled. Shock spread across their faces. Nella tried to protest, pointing out that Class 1 had 3 regional captains. Herod brushed it off, saying it should inspire them to work harder. The students were speechless at Herod's attitude. Trying to ease their fear, he said there was no need to worry when they had a representative of the newcomers with them. He looked at the protagonist and instructed him to select 6 classmates to play the servant alongside him. The protagonist saw through it. It was clearly a test. But Leo could feel it in Herod's gaze. There was no warmth in it. It was as if the professor already disliked him. Many students had already begun to lose hope after just a week at Lumine Academy. Leo understood. That was probably why Herod wanted him to step up, because someone had to lead those who were starting to give up. At that moment, Professor Sagan began outlining the Basura match, drawing the field boundaries, marking the goalposts. It was clear that Herod intended the game not just as competition, but as a way to reignite the broken morale of Class 5. On one side stood Duran and Celia, both representing Class 1 with steely confidence. Opposite, the protagonist lined up with Carl and Chelsea, his teammates for the game. Turning to the girl beside him, the protagonist asked why she seemed so unnerved. She let out a long sigh and explained that he must have never heard of Basura before. It wasn't just a game, she said. It was a deeply rooted combat sport and a proud tradition of Lumine Academy. Still confused, the protagonist questioned whether it really wasn't just a simple game. From his other side, Carl interjected, warning him that it was anything but. Basura, he said, was dangerous, not just a sport, but a full-on battle where injuries were common and aura-infused attacks were expected. At that moment, one of the opponents sneered at Chelsea, asking why she looked so frightened. Celia laughed mockingly, suggesting that perhaps Chelsea was already trembling with fear of her inevitable defeat. The taunt pushed Chelsea's buttons. She exclaimed with fury that no one was scared, and certainly not of a Zerdinger like her. The protagonist stepped in to diffuse the tension, pulling both Chelsea and Carl into an embrace and assuring them that there was no need to worry, because they weren't going to lose. Seeing Leo's arm around Chelsea, Celia's irritation flared. In her mind, she vowed revenge. She would prove the worth of her special training and make him regret brushing her off. Nearby, another member of Class 1 stood silently, Chloe Muller. Her eyes remained fixed on Leo, driven by her own determination not to lose to him. Once the field was ready, Professor Sagan summoned each team to introduce their players. The protagonist turned to his class, asking who would step onto the field with him. Several students showed eagerness. Chelsea, fired up by her rivalry with Celia, and Ileana, who wanted to prove her worth to Herod and avoid expulsion. Nella stepped forward as well, joined by another student whose name barely made it through the buzz of voices. Carl had been doing his best to stay out of sight, but the protagonist looked straight at him and called him out. He said the last spot was clearly his. With Carl reluctantly joining, the protagonist confirmed to Professor Sagan that Class 5 was ready to begin. With both teams in place, Sagan took the ball and tossed it rhythmically. All eyes shot skyward. As the ball climbed, both Leo and Duran dashed forward, channeling aura to leap higher and higher. Their hands reached at nearly the same moment. Duran's lightning-infused reflexes gave him the edge. He snatched the ball and touched down with ease, giving Class 1 the early advantage. Back on the ground, the protagonist quickly turned to Tide Marco and asked him to explain the game's rules. Tide replied that Basura was simpler than it seemed. The goal was to infuse aura into the ball, then throw and kick it into the opponent's goal. The team that reached 11 points first would win. While the protagonist tried to absorb the rules, Duran was already lining up a shot. Carl, nerves trembling, stood in front of the goal, bracing himself to block. Duran poured aura into the ball and launched it like a bullet.
The opportunities for a cybersecurity professional are near endless.
ECPI University cybersecurity graduate, Aaron.
I needed the flexibility of an online program, but I wanted to learn hands-on, and ECPI University provided that. Virtual simulations were amazing. We learned networking, packet tracing, server configuration, ethical hacking. They teach it all.
Duran poured aura into the ball and launched it like a bullet. The shot wasn't aimed at the goal directly. It curved sharply and headed straight for the protagonist. Leo instinctively dodged, and the ball smashed into the ground with force. Bouncing from the impact, it spun midair and arched toward the goal. Carl couldn't react in time. The ball crossed the bar with brutal speed, scoring the first point for Class 1. Cheers erupted from their side as Duran basked in the celebration. Meanwhile, the energy on Class 5's side deflated. Their heads dropped, and doubt crept in. Tide's expression darkened. He whispered that perhaps Herod really was preparing to expel them. Next to him, the protagonist asked how they could regain possession. Tide, resuming his explanation, listed 3 ways. If the ball went out of bounds during the opponent's turn, if they intercepted the ball, or, just as he was about to explain the third condition, Nella shouted a warning. Tide froze. He and Leo turned toward a surging orb. A blur rocketed across the field. The ball struck Eliana with devastating force, knocking her back into a smoking crater. Celia, who had thrown her, stood smirking. She asked sarcastically why they were chatting instead of paying attention to the game. Leo and Tide rushed over to Eliana, who lay amid the ash. Tide, finishing his thought, clarified that the third method of gaining possession was through player incapacitation. Players could attack or block one another directly, only the ball could be used to disable opponents. If a player was taken out, their team gained possession. Leo picked up the ball and thanked Tide for the information. He said confidently that it was their turn now. On the large screen beside the field, both teams' rosters were displayed. Eliana's name now appeared grayed out, marked as eliminated. Off the field, Professor Sagan and Herod monitored the match. Sagan frowned with concern. He knew that, in Basura, teams with raw firepower held the upper hand, and the Zerdingers, among all human bloodlines, possessed unmatched flame strength. He commented that Herod had accepted the match despite knowing Celia Zerdinger was in Class 1. Sagan admitted he couldn't guess Herod's motives, but he predicted that Class 5 would lose. For once, Herod responded seriously. He asked Sagan whether he remembered his first pupil, the girl from the Zerdinger house. Sagan replied that of course he remembered her. She had been called the Empress of Basura. Herod then revealed that the son of that very Empress now stood in Class 5. The comment left Sagan silent, and he turned his
Oh, this is gonna be good then.
in the stands.
I would have been, oh, this is gonna be good then.
Already convinced
They have a demon in our class. Oh, this is gonna be good.
Barely a week into their journey, and already they were at the edge of defeat. Just then, they saw him. From the center of the field, a blazing flame erupted, roaring with intensity. Celia's eyes widened as she realized who had ignited it. Phoenix flame enveloped the protagonist's body, transforming him into a blazing figure of authority. Leo infused his aura into the ball, now crackling with Phoenix energy. Celia shouted for her teammates to prepare. In the blink of an eye, the protagonist launched the ball toward the goal. Its speed was blinding, tearing through the air like a meteor. But before it could strike the net, the ball detonated into an immense wall of ice. In front of the towering wall of ice stood Chloe, confident and unshaken. She believed that as long as she guarded the goal, Leo wouldn't be able to score. But her confidence faltered when she sensed a presence beside her. Without even realizing it, Leo had already reached the wall. He whispered close to her, questioning whether she truly believed it was impossible. Then, with a burst of strength, he leapt up, delivering a powerful punch to the ball embedded in the ice and buried it. The force drove the ball through the wall, shattering the ice and launching it toward the goal. On the sidelines, Professor Sagan's eyes widened with surprise at Leo's instinct and combat intuition. Meanwhile,
Do you think so?
Satisfied smile. Cheers erupted from Class 5. Their hope, which had been Sagan's stern expression finally shifted into a smile. For the first time, he admitted to himself that this match had just become real. Celia reignited the pressure with her fire abilities, giving the upper hand back to Class 1. The momentum swung constantly, Chelsea managing to tip the balance back in favor of Class 5, only for Tide to exit the game and leave them trailing again. Back and forth it went until Duran relied on lightning to drive his attacks. Then came another critical moment. The ball zigzagged across the field, trailing electricity. It screamed toward the goal until someone stepped in front of it. Carl raised a trembling arm to block the attack. The ball collided with his hand, dragging him backwards as his feet scraped the ground, trying to stop it. Though his skin squeezed and his aura faltered, he didn't let go. Despite being burned and clearly exhausted, Carl smiled and said his mana was gone anyway. Now it was up to Leo. With the last of his strength, Carl drilled the ball to Leo and collapsed, needing support from Chelsea and Eliana as they rushed to help him off the field. The score remained deadly, 10 to 10. One more point would decide everything. Now, Leo stood alone on the field, facing off against three top-ranked students, each known in their own region. Though he held the ball, the odds were stacked against him. Chloe prepared to unleash her full potential. She was determined not to repeat the humiliation of her earlier failure in the theoretical exam. Her body shimmered as she activated her skill.
I'm Jonathan Finiak with Wyoming LLC Attorney. Our sole focus is providing our clients with the best asset protection and privacy that Wyoming law will allow. We've been able to democratize the delivery of our services and asset protection and privacy.
Her body shimmered as she activated her skill, summoning multiple clones of herself. The numerical pressure was now even heavier. Celia and Duran played.
What the hell?
They gathered their auras and watched closely for Leo's next move. A faint green glow surrounded him, and in the next instant, he
What the
vanished.
fuck? Hey yo, what
The
the?
speed shocked all three opponents. Copies of Leo blinked into view across the field. With perfect precision, he weaved through the defenses. Chloe recognized his movements weren't aimed at attacking her directly. Instead, he intended to